Amara Johnson was quietly cleaning the back of the classroom when a sharp voice cut through the still air. "You're not supposed to be in here. Custodial staff use the back entrance." She froze, the mop still in her hand, water dripping from its edge onto the polished floor. Turning slowly, Amara saw her, a tall white woman in a crisp white blouse and fitted gray pencil skirt. Blonde hair in a tight bun, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp and judging. It was the new literature teacher, Miss Whitney Parker. Amara opened her mouth, ready to explain, but Miss Parker didn't wait. She spoke again, her voice clipped and dismissive. "This room was supposed to be cleaned by 4. If you're still here, make yourself useful. Wipe the desks and windows too." Amara hesitated. She was wearing a hoodie and sneakers, not designer clothes like the other girls. She didn't look like anyone important, but she was a student here. She belonged. Still, she said nothing. She bent down and started wiping the floor again. Just then, footsteps echoed outside the door, followed by snickering. 3 senior boys passed by and stopped when they saw her. One of them laughed and nudged the other. "Yo, is that the new girl or the janitor?" "Nah, she's both," the second one smirked. "Janitor Johnson, mop it up, girl." The third boy pulled out his phone and started recording. "Lincoln High's newest custodian, let's get those views." They laughed as they walked away. Amara's ears burned, but she didn't flinch. She kept scrubbing, even as the water from the mop smeared her jeans. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her spine stayed straight. Inside, her thoughts echoed louder than their laughter. She wasn't here to serve them. And one day soon, they'd learn exactly who she was. Let me know if you're happy with this tone. If yes, just say "continue" and I'll write section 2 in the same voice-ready style. The room felt colder now. The mop bucket sat still beside her, the water murky and dark. Amara moved toward the corner where she'd started, eyes scanning the floor not just for dirt, but for something else. And then she saw it. Tucked just beneath the leg of a desk was a silver bracelet, dull and half buried under crumpled paper. Her heart jumped. She dropped to her knees and reached for it with urgency, lifting it gently as if it might break in her hand. It was her grandmother's bracelet, the one with the barely legible engraving. She rose anyway. "I thought I lost you," she whispered to herself. She stared at it for a moment, her mind flickering back to childhood stories. Her grandmother had worn this exact bracelet when she'd walked out of this same school in protest 50 years ago. Back then, she wasn't allowed to enter the school science fair because her skin might distract the judges. She didn't fight with fists, she fought with grace. And she never came back. Until now, through Amara. She stood slowly and slid the bracelet back onto her wrist, her hands still damp with mop water. Her breath steadied. "Don't cry," she told herself, "not in front of her." Behind her, Miss Parker's voice interrupted. "You find something? Toss it in Lost and Found. This room isn't going to clean itself." Amara didn't turn. She didn't speak. She just kept holding the bracelet, as if it could shield her from every assumption that had already been made. Then the door creaked open. Mr. Dawson, the physics teacher, walked in carrying a tablet under his arm. He stopped when he saw Amara. "Amara, you're still here?" he asked gently. Whitney didn't look up from her clipboard. "She's finishing up, community service, I assume." Mr. Dawson frowned. "She's one of my top physics students. She's not here to clean." The silence that followed was heavy. Miss Parker's eyes lifted, just for a second. "Oh, I wasn't aware." "Maybe you should have asked," Mr. Dawson said flatly. He turned and left. Amara stood still, the bracelet cool against her skin, and a new strength quietly growing beneath the surface. They didn't see her yet, but they would. Let me know if you'd like me to continue to Section 3 in the same voice-friendly, emotionally grounded style. The mop bucket tipped before she saw it coming. A loud slosh, a sharp splash, and suddenly Amara's left leg was soaked with cold, dirty water. She gasped, stepping back instinctively, her sneakers now heavy and dripping. Behind her, Miss Parker looked up from her desk with a sigh. "If you can't manage a simple cleaning task," she said, her voice flat, "maybe next time just stay out of the way." Amara's cheeks burned. The chemical smell stung her nose. Her jeans clung to her skin, but she said nothing. She grabbed a few paper towels from the counter and wiped her hands in silence. Then the worst part happened. Footsteps, voices, laughter. 3 boys, the same ones from earlier, were back, standing just outside the door, filming again. "She's still at it," one of them chuckled. $10 says she doesn't finish before dinner." "Yo, Janitor Johnson back at it again," the second one joked, pointing his phone camera straight at her. "Let's post it with the caption, 'When you mop harder than you study,'" the third one cackled. The sound of their laughter bounced off the walls. Amara didn't move. She felt it rising, the shame, the anger, the urge to scream, but instead, she clenched her jaw and stood tall. "Stop filming," she said quietly. They didn't hear her, or didn't care. "I said stop filming," she said again, louder now. That's when another voice rang out, firm and clear. "Turn off your phones, right now." Everyone turned. Mr. Dawson stood at the end of the hallway, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a clipboard. His face was calm but stern. "This student is under my mentorship," he said. "She's not a janitor. She's in the top 5% of her class, and you just violated 3 school policies." The boys froze. One of them quickly shoved his phone into his pocket. They backed away without another word. Miss Parker sat silently at her desk. Amara said nothing either, but her hands stopped shaking. Someone had finally said what she couldn't. And for the first time, someone saw her. Not as a problem, not as a worker, but as a student who mattered. The hallway emptied, and the final bell echoed faintly through the building. Amara remained behind in the silent classroom, the air thick with the scent of disinfectant and something heavier, the weight of being invisible. She moved slowly, wiping down the last of the desks, when she noticed her wrist felt bare. Her bracelet was gone. Panic tightened in her chest. She scanned the floor, the corners, beneath the chairs, nothing. Heart pounding, she retraced her steps to the trash can near the teacher's desk. She peered in and froze. There it was. Lying among crushed paper towels and spilled ink pens, stained with cleaning fluid, was her grandmother's bracelet. Amara didn't hesitate. She reached straight into the bin, her hand sinking past the surface of waste and filth until her fingers wrapped around the metal. She pulled it out carefully and clutched it tightly to her chest, eyes closed for just a second. Behind her, Miss Parker had stopped typing. She looked up, watching Amara with a strange expression. Not annoyance this time, not indifference. Something else. Something quieter. "That bracelet," she said softly. "It looks old." Amara didn't turn around. She wiped the dirt from the engraving with her thumb as she answered. "It was my grandmother's. She graduated from this school, or tried to. They wouldn't let her present her science project here in 1969. Miss Parker didn't speak. There was an uneasy pause, followed by something unexpected. "I didn't know," she said, her voice lower now. "I shouldn't have assumed." Amara gave no reply. She wasn't ready to forgive. But maybe it wasn't about forgiveness. Maybe it was about being seen. That night, Miss Parker sat alone in her apartment, staring at a blank screen. She opened the faculty reporting portal. After a long pause, she typed a report of what had happened. The mistaken identity, the student's dignity, the witness. She didn't sign her name, but she submitted it anyway. Not for credit, not to save face, but because deep down something told her this couldn't happen again. The morning of the school assembly arrived with heavy clouds and a strange tension in the halls of Lincoln High. Students buzzed in hushed conversations, and teachers stood a little straighter than usual. The mayor was coming, and with her, the girl whose name now everyone knew, Amara Johnson. Backstage, Amara stood beside her mother, Mayor Lorraine Johnson, adjusting the cuffs of her blazer. Her grandmother's bracelet was snug on her wrist, polished and gleaming under the soft stage lights. But her mind wasn't calm. She'd seen it that morning, an email thread left open on the principal's screen. A forwarded message from Miss Parker to administration, subtle, clinical, and sharp. Concerns about students' behavior, potential misrepresentation of role, recommend review of student privileges before public appearances. Even now, someone was trying to shrink her back into the box they thought she belonged in. The curtains opened. The principal stepped onto the stage and tapped the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our guest of honor, Mayor Lorraine Johnson, and her daughter, Amara Johnson, who serves on the Mayor's Youth STEM Council." A few gasps rippled across the audience. A teacher in the front row sat upright. Some students whispered. But Amara stepped forward slowly, calm and composed, her head held high. She didn't look at Miss Parker, who sat stiffly in the second row. She didn't have to. She approached the podium but didn't speak about herself. Instead, she turned slightly and gestured to the side of the stage. "Before I begin," she said, her voice steady, "I'd like to ask someone to join me up here. Alejandro Morales. He's a student in my class who helped me find my way on my very first day. No fanfare, no questions, just kindness." A murmur ran through the auditorium. A boy in the fourth row, wearing a simple shirt and trying to hide behind his bangs, slowly stood up. Amara smiled and stepped back as he walked forward, stunned. "Leadership," she continued, "isn't about who holds the microphone. Sometimes it's about who hands it to someone else." The audience applauded. Not thunderously, but sincerely. Miss Parker didn't clap at first. Then, slowly, she did. Amara walked off stage with Alejandro, her bracelet catching the light one final time as she descended the stairs. She didn't need to call out the people who doubted her. She'd just shown the whole room who she really was, and what real power looked like. And this time, they finally saw her.